How do you know he's not your potentate? How will you deal with scarcity when it's bullets that are scarce? Where can you turn if you're not hearing enough about guns on the 24-hour news channels? For December 11th, 2015, from the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in suspiciously El Nino-y Cranston, Rhode Island, this is NewsUndies. For December 11th, 2015, this is NewsUndies, all the news that shouldn't be news. Moose Weintraub is off this week. I'm Paul Torville with these headlines. Pretty sure I don't recognize any of the names in the Grammy nominations this year. As if being a child of pointless celebrities isn't enough pressure, meet Saint West, child of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. Good luck, kid. You're gonna need it. Republican U.S. Senator from Texas, presidential hopeful, Canadian-born son of a Cuban immigrant and likely insane person, Ted Cruz, was recently interviewed by anti-gay loon Peter LaBarbera, which I can only suspect is his drag name. And doesn't it strike you as a little odd that there's all of those conservative chicken hawks running around the fringes of our political system, apparently full of self-loathing, egging on the Christian right to rein in all the depravity in this nation, which they themselves occasionally get caught partaking of? Men with suspiciously gay-sounding names like Peter LaBarbera, Wayne LaPierre, Ben Dupre, Tony Perkins, Ted Haggard, Randy Boening, Pastor Eddie Long, Larry Craig, and Phyllis Schlafly. LaBarbera asked Cruz what he thought of the Supreme Court's ruling in Obergefell, the case which established marriage equality regardless of the genders of the participants. Cruz said, "My response to the decision was that it was illegitimate, it was lawless, it was utterly contrary to the Constitution, and that we should fight to defend marriage on every front." Links below with a bunch of audio and quotes. Ted Cruz, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to tip your servers. That cuckoo clock with the cavernous, cacophonous cookie cave and the carrot cotton candy quaff, Donald Dump? What? Huh? Oh, Donald Rump. What? Ronald Punt. What? Oh, fuck it. Basil Fawlty has suggested that it would be a good idea to do with Muslim refugees something like what we did with American citizens of Japanese descent during World War II. Concentration camps. Smart. Or just ban their admission altogether. Prominent Republicans with at least a shred of sense, or at least the ability to smell political suicide of historic proportions, have distanced themselves from Trump or denounced his comments altogether. One such Republican is newly minted Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Ryan, sporting a new Gerard Butler Olympus Has Fallen beard, Ryan said, "What was proposed yesterday is not what this party stands for, and more importantly, it's not what this country stands for. Not only are there many Muslims serving in our armed forces, dying for this country, there are Muslims serving right here in this house, working every day to uphold and defend the Constitution." Later, Trump said that in order to stop Islamic terrorists, he was going to talk to Bill Gates to persuade him to turn off those internets, saying, "We are losing a lot of people to the internet. We have to do something. We have to go see Bill Gates and a lot of different people that really understand what's happening. We have to talk to them about maybe in certain areas closing that internet up in some way." That's great, Don. You go ahead and do that. It's not often you see a guy that green have the blues that bad. Up next, back away from the Turbo Man doll. The government has all the flamethrowers, and God told me what he wants you to do.
Whether you prefer post-industrial vampire trance music or neo-gothic nerdcore speed thrash, Royal Records is the record store for you. Royal Records has albums and cassettes from many of your favorite artists, including The Letterman, The Righteous Brothers, The Insane Clown Posse, The Slipknots, and The Nine Inch Nails. No matter your taste, you'll find the records and tapes you love at Royal Records, Main Street, downtown. Open weekdays from 10 to 4.
Wayne LaPierre. Since there aren't enough guns and there isn't enough shooting in America, the police chief in Hughes Springs, Texas, Randy Kennedy, has warned the residents of his community that they had better get guns, possibly more guns, in order to kill Muslim terrorists and to repel Barack Obama's government. He really leaned on his community to stock up on arms and ammunition to stop the terrorists and the radical ideology, apparently unlike his own, then relayed a special message directly to President Obama saying, "You are not our potentate, sir. You are our servant, and you were elected to serve and protect us first. And I suspect, sir, since you are a constitutional expert, that you better review your history on the Constitution and understand we are a free people and are subject to no one other than the Almighty God and Jesus Christ, the King. If you try and disarm us, sir, you will cause a revolution in this country to occur." Yeah. And while that was going on, in the unspoiled wilderness of Flint Township, Michigan, two gentlemen were having a dispute over something inside a Toys R Us store, when apparently they agreed the conversation would be better had in the fresh air outside the store. Shots were fired, and the store was locked down for about 20 minutes. Local news reporters said as many as 9 shell casings were on the ground at the scene of the shooting. 9! Over toys! The suspect allegedly fled the scene in a tan Chevy Silverado pickup, while the victim was rushed to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries and is expected to recover fully. So, what have we learned? Randy Kennedy may well have been homeschooled. Toys are worth fighting, going to jail, dying, and killing for. And Flint Township, Michigan, and Hughes Springs, Texas, go right on the list of places never to go. Michigan County, Texas. And just to make you feel extra safe, beginning in January, there will be a new cable channel, Gun TV, also known as GTV Live Shopping. So be sure to check your local listings. The channel will start with 6 hours of daily programming commencing at 1 a.m., but expects to be 24 hours, assuming everything gets a positive reaction. Of course, when you look at what else is being advertised between, say, 1 and 6 in the morning, you find primarily personal injury attorneys, hearing aids, urinary catheters, ridiculous workout programs, reverse mortgages, stuff like that. Stuff you would never consider purchasing unless you were sleep deprived. So that'll be good. People making impulsive gun purchases while they can't sleep. Sadly, Time magazine has already selected its Person of the Year, and it's German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Apparently, no one is more disappointed than the law firm known as Liberty Counsel, which has been representing the defiant Kentucky County Clerk, Kim Davis, as they wanted Time to pick Davis as Person of the Year. Well, that's just fucking dumb. Kim Davis's failure to satisfy the duties of her office or make way for someone who will does not put her in the same ranks as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Dietrich Bonhoeffer, as Liberty Counsel would have the editors of Time magazine believe. It puts her more in the ranks of Richard Nixon or Strom Thurmond, people whom history had passed by, and they just didn't even notice. They just stood there, ignorantly blocking the way, until either by happenstance they got out of the way, or they were moved out of the way of progress. Jason Dixon of Sycamore Township, Ohio, set up a small nativity scene on his own front yard, and township officials were not impressed. They have threatened to fine him $500 a day for every day the display remains in his yard. The officials claim that the display is violating the zoning regulations because it occupies more than 35% of the front yard. Dixon, however, claims that he has paperwork from the township which indicates that as long as the display does not cover more than 200 square feet, he does not need a permit. He says that his display only covers 65 square feet. Now, by my math, the only way that his display violates the 35% rule is if his front yard is less than 185 square feet, which seems highly unlikely in the exurbs of Cincinnati. It's unclear what the leaders of the township might be worried about, since from all the way out here in Rhode Island, the regulations don't really seem to be enforceable the way they say. I wonder if it has something to do with the zombie baby Jesus in the manger, surrounded by traditionally costumed characters in various stages of undead decay. Could be. On Sunday, Christian protesters handed out leaflets in front of Dixon's house with the headline, "God frowns on this manger display." Well, A, how do they know? Second, free will. C, God's perfect plan. Tell God to turn that frown upside down, because everything's going according to his perfect plan. And while we're talking about so-called good guys with guns, Nelson Harvey, 91, of El Paso, Texas, shot and killed his terminally ill wife of 60 years. He alerted the staff at the retirement home where they lived that he had shot her and informed the police that he was tired of her suffering. What does this say about the state of health care in this country? Here are Pig and Sheep with their thoughts.
Jesus said something about living as long as you can, or something like that. I'm sure of it. I mean, thou shalt not kill is right there in the 10 Commandments. God made us suffer because of the sins of Adam and Eve, I guess. Something like that. Anyway, killing's bad. Buy more guns, baby Jesus. Amen. Woo! The fact that we have more states with laws supporting medical marijuana than we have supporting death with dignity says a lot about the priorities of voters and the state of politics in America today. Apart from the cost of writing, voting on, and publishing the legislation, the death with dignity law costs next to nothing. A state-regulated marijuana program is costly to set up but brings in revenue once it's up and running. Apparently, that's what matters more. Having legal and unpenalized control of one's own end of life seems like a no-brainer, but the selfish interests of relatives, medical institutions, and politicians seem to outweigh the obvious moral benefit of ensuring the right of an individual to decide when his or her life is no longer worth living.
Well, that's what Pig and Sheep think. What are your thoughts? Email them to ovcomments@newsundies.com. Not exactly. Sparkling Muscatel, one of the finest wines of Idaho. Still to come, no hope for being an Olympic-level twister competitor now, and everything he touches dies!
Your childhood. George Lucas. In 1977, George Lucas made your childhood. In 1997, George Lucas took your childhood away. In 1999, George Lucas made you watch as he bent your childhood over a stump. Now, George Lucas wants you to watch him violating your childhood in 3D. Finally, someone is here to stop George Lucas from defiling your childhood memories anymore. But we need your help. The Original Trilogy Restoration Alliance has been established to raise all the money necessary to distract George Lucas from thinking Star Wars needs to be revised again. Please, give generously. This is our most desperate hour. Help us save your memories. You're our only hope.
Michael O'Neill, 45, of Niagara County, New York, apparently had an unfortunate run-in with an explosive device he was allegedly manufacturing in the garage of his home. In his subsequent interview with ATF agents, O'Neill reported that he was using a heat gun on it when it caught fire and fell to the floor. He tried to stomp it out, and it exploded. The explosion caused serious injury to his lower leg, after which doctors amputated. Authorities reportedly found several other explosive devices and materials for making even more. At least one of the devices contained nails as shrapnel. Authorities are charging him with possession of an unregistered firearm and possession of explosives. But despite all of the KKK and white supremacist literature in the garage, this case is not being treated as a terrorist plot. O'Neill is only being charged with possession of explosives and a firearm. If convicted, he could face a maximum of 10 years in prison and a lifetime of wishing he had pursued his career as a professional Morris dancer. And finally, and I do mean finally, we all saw this coming, didn't we? As you may recall, a big deal was made of the Pope's visit to the U.S. this past fall, including how he blessed a little boy with cancer in Philadelphia. Well, a fat lot of good that did. Landon Vargas, the 9-year-old cancer patient, died this week from, well, cancer. Kind of a foregone conclusion, really. So, way to go, Pope Frank. Keep that false consolation coming. Well, that's all for this edition of NewsUndies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, you can submit your story tips online at newsundies.com or on Twitter with the hashtag NUSTip. NewsUndies is a weekly show. We'll be back on Friday, December 18th with fresh undies and a look back to laugh or, if need be, cry about the events of this past year. If you like this video, please like this video. If you like the show, please spread the word. Got a question, comment, or suggestion? Leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, circle us on Google+, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, ignore us on MySpace, tell your friends, and buy NewsUndies Kitsch at newsundies.com. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at NewsUndies, until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I might be not mentioning the war. Thanks to story tipper Anonymous! Oh, that's good. That's really good.
I just want to tell you good luck. We're all counting on you.